Hi, and thank you for joining us today. Today, I am Ashley Costello, and we have Ashley Lauer with us today, and we are going to dive a bit deeper into your SafeUT data reports, and we're going to help you analyze your SafeUT data reports. Like I said, my name is Ashley Costello, and I am from the Huntsman Mental Health Institute. And Ashley?
I'm Ashley Lauer, and I am a behavior specialist with the Utah State Board of Education.
All right, so a brief agenda for today. We are going to do some brief introductions. And like I said, we're going to dive deeper into the annual SafeUT data reports that our SafeUT inbox sent you. You'll have your zip file and also your district and LEA reports as well. And then Ashley Lauer is going to dive deeper into the what now and how to triangulate that data. And then we will share some contact information with you all in case you have any follow-up questions for us today. Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, thank you. So again, my name is Ashley Lauer. I am a behavior specialist on the Safe and Healthy Schools team at the Utah State Board of Education. I have a background in school psychology and recreation therapy, and I'm excited to be here with Ashley Costello to share a little bit more about how to use the SafeUT annual data report.
Yes, thank you. And like I said, I am Ashley Costello. I am a project administrator for SafeUT out of the Huntsman Mental Health Institute, HMHI, formerly known as UNI. I am also a dual report employee with the Utah State Board of Education. So Ashley and I do get to collaborate on some work throughout the year, and it's a really great time to have her with us today. I've been with HMHI for about a year and a half now, and I also sit on their marketing and outreach team. So I help the project team with some outreaches for student assemblies and staff assemblies as well. All right, so like I said, a few weeks ago, the last week of July, the SafeUT project team sent out our annual data reports. So in each email, district leaders received a LEA report and then a zip file containing individual school reports. This is what the LEA report looks like. So you could see this LEA, we did black out information for privacy purposes, but you can see it has up in the right-hand corner the year, so the 2021 school year. So we are taking this data from August 1st all of the way to June 11th of 2021. And you can see on the left-hand side here, the chat and tip volumes by school. So each school is broken down by elementary, middle school, and high school. And then we do have the quantitative data for the number of chats that SafeUT clinicians received, the number of tips SafeUT clinicians received, and then the grand total for the school year. Now you'll see some areas are blank. That means we received 0 chats or 0 tips. So if you see a space that is blank, there is 0 data for that space. You also will see possibly an asterisk instead of a numerical number. And this is noted up here in the top of each report that low volumes were changed to these asterisks to protect the anonymity of users. To the right, you'll also see user volumes by school. So we have broken it down into educators, parents, students, and then also the grand total there at the end. To review what a chat and a tip is, and I believe these definitions are also at the bottom of each page of your report. A chat is a confidential conversation between the user and our HMHI clinicians. So they are chatting, basically texting back and forth with our clinicians. And these are just encounters. For example, this top elementary school had 47 chat encounters, meaning throughout the school year, 47 different times a user chatted in. That does not necessarily mean that there were 47 different users chatting in, just 47 different occurrences throughout the school year. Next, we move into those individual school reports. So again, these are in the zip file that was in the email, and we have the district and we have the school. And then we have this summary chart, which breaks down the encounters, the threads, and then the average thread count. So let's look at the student chat and tip row. So you'll see for this specific school, there were 64 student chat encounters, 1,958 threads. Now, the definition of a thread, again, I believe those definitions are at the bottom of each report. But a thread is the number of message exchanges within each encounter. For example, if a user reaches out and says, I am struggling today, and our HMHI clinician responds back, how can I help you? That is 2 encounters. And then we just simply take the average thread of each encounter. So we take the number of threads divided by the number of encounters, and we get that average thread count. So here the student chats are 30. That means that every time a student is chatting in with our HMHI clinician, there are on average 30 messages going back and forth between the student and our clinicians. Again, we have the asterisks there to protect the anonymity of users. Now, these reports are created based off of a coding process that our IT team runs. There are some schools that have a lot of data, and unfortunately, it might look like that you're missing some data, or it looks like you can scroll down, but unfortunately it's a PDF, so you can't scroll down, or some numbers are cut off. And we do apologize for that, and we appreciate your patience. However, if that is what your school data looks like, please feel free to email us, and we will share our email at the end here, and we will manually download your report to make sure you can see and you can have access to all of your data. Moving down this report, we have the top tips. So the left bar graph shows the breakdown in percentages of the top tips for the school. And then the bar graph on the right compares it to the top tip breakdown of the district or the LEA. So here you're able to compare how your school tips against the LEA tips. And again, it is broken down by percentages. Moving further down the school report, we have the encounter volumes bar graph. So here it is broken down into chats at the top and tips at the bottom. So this shows the numerical data for the number of chats and the number of tips for this specific school by months. So here you can see October was a pretty busy month for chats and tips. January is a pretty busy month for chats and tips. And like I said, Ashley Lauer will dive deeper into that data and analyzing what that means here in a second. But this is just a very nice visual overview of what the chats and tips look like and how your students and parents and educators are utilizing SafeUT across the school year. And you can also see here that it is broken down and you can identify between students and parents. So you can see parents chatted or tipped in October, and you can see parents chatted in January, and you can see parents sent a tip in March. Now, very briefly, I'm going to back up for a second and go back to these top tip categories. I do want to remind you and share with you that each tip can only have one category attached to it. So if there is a tip that comes in that might deal with a few different situations, there will only be one primary category for that tip which makes the most sense. On top of that, our clinicians have the ability to update or change those categories as well. So for example, if a student sends us a tip and they choose the other category because they couldn't find a category that worked best for their tip, after our clinicians receive the tip, assess the tip, and maybe get some more information from the student via that chat feature regarding the tip that they sent in, our clinicians are able to change the category of the tip before sending it over to your school and your LEA. So Ashley, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I love that clarity you provided to the reports and what everything means and some initial information on how that data might be used. So now we're going to talk about a little bit more about what now. How do we use this data from these annual reports in our planning for each year? So the first slide, we're going to look at more generally just some general principles in analyzing these reports. And then we're going to go back to the slides that show the sample reports and dig into those just a little bit more. Each report obviously is going to look different. It's going to give you different information. So you may, your planning will look different depending on what your data, what data is presented on your report. So let's look at these general principles. So the first important thing to look at is looking at this data from this report with a multidisciplinary team, making sure there's more than one individual reviewing the data. Having those different perspectives is really important to ensuring that you're getting a full picture, a complete picture of what's happening. And this may include community partners in some instances, if you have a working relationship with your community partner to really look at what's happening from a community perspective. It can also include in some regions, we have regional education service agencies that are involved in supporting districts and charter schools within their region. And each of these regional education service agencies is involved in a school-based mental health qualified grant program, which means they have some individuals that could help support in reviewing this data as well. Something important to keep in mind with the multidisciplinary team review is data privacy. We always want to maintain the privacy of our students. Obviously, this report does not have any personally identifiable information. But as we talk a little bit further in these general principles, we will want to do some triangulation of data with other data sources. So that data privacy is really important to keep in mind when you're doing these reviews, especially as you may be involving some community personnel and such in the reviews. So that takes us to our second general principle, which is to triangulate your data to identify patterns. So this SafeUT report gives some fantastic information, but there's other information that is already being gathered that you can look at to support some of your planning moving forward. So we could look at office discipline referrals. How does some of that data line up with what you're seeing in this SafeUT report? We also have the SHARP survey data that gives a wealth of information specific to substance use and school, community and school climate, social emotional health, including some suicide related indicators. So there's some great information there that can be utilized alongside with this report. Another thing about the SHARP survey is that at the end of that report, there is also some guidance on planning. So utilizing that as you are looking forward to the coming school year and what you might do to bolster the support for your students. We also have the school climate survey, which provides a lot of data from various perspectives, from the student perspective and from various adult perspectives, specific to sense of belonging and connectedness, and thinking about how that data would help you look at or help you analyze some of the topic areas that you see in the school report, really using that together. It also gives specific data regarding safety and the safety that our students feel within our school. As well as there's several questions in the school climate survey regarding bullying as well, which is in some schools is one of the topics that is one of the highest tip topics that is received. So really looking at that, also looking at other local data that you might be collecting. I know that there's some schools and districts that are collecting data on SEL programming and also on attendance. So looking at all of that data together and really looking at those patterns that you find. Some of the SafeUT report, because of the confidentiality and privacy, as of now, can't be broken down by grade level. So there's some other data that is broken down in that way, and you can kind of look at that together. So really taking that time to work as a team, looking at a variety of data sources to see how you can plan for the upcoming year. And then lastly, asking critical questions. If there's data missing, why is that data missing? Is there a lack of engagement happening there? Is there a lack of understanding of SafeUT or utilization of it? What are the numbers telling you? What are some high priority problem areas that you can focus on? How can you plan for the upcoming year based on the data that is within this report and within the other data sources? So really asking those critical questions. Sometimes it's hard to look at data that might not be showing the greatest picture, but that data is really important to drive some changes that may be needed in the upcoming year, some adjustments that may be needed. And it also shows some of can show some of the strengths as well. So moving on, we're going to look at the district report and just looking at, I should say, the LEA report, as it could be a district or a charter with multiple schools within the charter. So this is really important information for support for our schools. Looking at this data can help the LEA to know how to support those schools within their district, or at least give a starting place for that. It's really important that we do more than just share this data. Obviously, it's important to share all of these reports with the schools, but also have some conversations with the schools. So provide an initial email with the data and hopefully have time to schedule a meeting to really discuss what's being seen within this LEA report, but also in the school report, and seeing how that support can be provided, what might be needed from the LEA level. So as Ashley talked about, this is separated into the chat and tip encounters, as well as the encounters by different users. As I talked about before, there's pieces of this that we're saying, okay, there's not a lot of data from some of our elementary schools. What might that mean? Having that conversation with that school and seeing if they are utilizing SafeUT, and maybe there's support that's happening that is happening internally within the school, that there's not a lot of those chats or tips happening, or maybe SafeUT is not being utilized within that school. So how can we market and bolster the use of SafeUT so we are giving students the support that they need? So with this LEA report, that's the really important piece, looking at that data, also seeing which schools have really high numbers of chats and tips, and maybe seeing, is there something happening there? Is there a way that we can support? That may be due to there's maybe more students in that school, but maybe that's not what's going on. Maybe there's something happening, and really delving into utilizing this report to know how to start conversations with the schools, and then going into their school specific report to gather some more information and understand how to provide that support. So moving on to the school report, what we're looking at here is the top of this report, and there's two key important pieces here. One, I think, is looking at the chat and the thread count for the students. There are a lot of long encounters happening. So looking at that and saying, you know, what is happening here? There's a lot of conversations happening with the clinicians. Are those students getting the support that they need, or is there some extra support that might be needed within the school setting as well? And then the second piece is looking at those top tips within the school. And I think that gives us really important data on where to start our support. So looking at this specific report, we see that the percentage for suicide, that being the topic, is fairly high compared to the other percentages. So maybe we look at bolstering our suicide prevention efforts. How can we really engage our students in understanding and then providing some of that support for them? We also see several of the other top tip topics are surrounding different mental health concerns. So looking at maybe providing some mental health literacy for our students, having our school-based mental health personnel involved in providing some additional support at a preventative level, at a tier 1 level, so that students have that understanding, that base foundational understanding. And then there will be students who need additional support as well, but really being aware of that can help in that planning process. One other thing to consider is again, coming back to those chats and tips, really looking at, you know, as those tips come in, there is follow-up that's happening. So looking at some of that anecdotal data from those follow-ups, again, considering student privacy, making sure that we are maintaining our student privacy, but looking at some of that anecdotal data to see, are there different areas, locations within the school that things are happening, or different pockets of students where there's extra support needed. So using some of that anecdotal data to continue to drive that planning. That documentation and follow-up is really important when we're going through the process of supporting our students, but can also be helpful as we're looking at this report and deciding, you know, making some decisions about the upcoming year and how we can support our students. So coming to the last part of our report here, where we're looking at the different months so if we can go to the next slide really quickly, thank you. We're looking at the chats and tips by month. And this is really important to show us some trends of what's happening. Ashley pointed out some of the months like October and January where we had a higher volume of tips and chats. So knowing that from the previous year, what are some things that we can put in place to support our students during those months, to provide a little bit of extra support, a little bit of extra information? It could be, as we talked about, the highest tip topics really focused on, or were around mental health concerns. So maybe it's a mental health awareness week. It could be on another report that bullying was really high. So maybe it's really focusing on bullying prevention and helping our students understand how to recognize, how to support, how to report when bullying is happening. So using this information to determine what timeframes we might want to add additional support. Also understanding, looking back on what was happening during that month. Maybe in January, obviously you're coming back from a school break, but also maybe in this last year, your school might have been going back into hybrid learning or into in-person. So really taking a look at what was happening. Was it something that was new to this last year, or is it something that happens every year? And having an understanding of that, again, to support that planning process. So overall, we're going to looking at this data with a multidisciplinary team. We're going to focus on triangulating the data with the other data sources we have available. We're going to make sure that we protect our students' privacy and really taking into consideration those data privacy laws. And then finally, again, we're going to ask those critical questions so that we can gain the best picture we can about what happened and what we can do to support our students in this upcoming year. So again, this is some more general information, but hopefully will help as you are looking at your local data to know some general principles, some general ideas on how to analyze these reports to provide the best support we can for our students in the upcoming year. So going to our last slide here, we just want to provide our contact information for you. If you have any questions on the reports themselves or on how to analyze the reports using your local data, please feel free to reach out, ask us any questions you might have. And I will turn the time back over to Ashley to wrap us up here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I will just reiterate, if you have any questions regarding analyzing your report or need some additional assistance, or have any questions regarding some reports that you might need resent to you, please feel free to contact my personal email, or I've also included the SafeUT email as well. You might get a quicker response with the SafeUT email, as more of us are checking that inbox than just me doing my personal one. Additionally, I'm going to shamelessly plug our new launch of the new look and feel of the SafeUT brand here within the next week. So with the new launch and the new look and feel, we are thinking of revising these reports and the things that we show you and how it looks. So if you have any feedback on things you would like to see in the future, or things that we have provided you that aren't really very helpful, that would be awesome as well, as we provide you guys these reports for your benefit and to help you guys out. So if you could help us help you, that would be wonderful. Again, if you have any questions or follow-up items, feel free to reach out to myself or Ashley Lauer. Thank you so much. Yep. And have a wonderful day, guys.